The carriage finally rolled up to the fortress after what felt like forever. The guy inside the carriage barked at the guards to open the gates. He'd brought her, after all. The heroine peeked out the window, and her bright pink eyes lit up with awe. This giant fortress was seriously next level. They swung open the gates to the Phoenix Duchy's fortress without a second thought. They warned her the north was one big snow globe, winter all year round. But inside the estate, totally lush and green, even with the freezing cold. Yuna was floored by those magic stones' power. Her uncle dropped the bomb. This was her new home now. Starting today, she was officially the Archduke's wife. The second Yuna stepped out of the carriage, the maids waiting there started whispering nonstop, not even trying to hide it. Her uncle's hand landed on her shoulder, steady and firm. He warned her, Northerners could be real cold to outsiders. Back home on Rook Island, there was no concept of nations, just tribes, and Yuna would have done anything for hers. She yanked off her hood and flashed a smile, introducing herself with that easy confidence. The maids literally gaped. Angelic beauty didn't even cover it. Then, out of nowhere, a guy right next to them muttered, "Is that her?" And suddenly everyone snapped to attention at the sight of His Highness. Blood-soaked Lord Theo de Phoenix explained he'd just gotten back from a hunt. He offered his blood-stained hand to the young woman. As he introduced himself, the heroine shyly shook his hand, surprisingly warm and huge, but his voice was damn cold. Yuna didn't care. Out of nowhere, the Lord announced there'd be no formal wedding ceremony, much to the heroine's shock. Theo explained he'd been married 3 times, each wife either missing or dead. Later, the Lord's secretary showed her where she'd be staying. The rooms were separate from Theo's, and Julius told her to see it as a chance to get used to the place step by step. But her room was in the tower's attic. Every other floor was empty. The heroine was equal parts shocked and thrilled. Couldn't believe she'd be living here all alone. Lord Phoenix was downing drinks in his study. Julius walked in and reported he'd settled the girl in the North Tower. But he was dying to know why the master was blood-soaked. There hadn't even been a hunt. Theo explained it was a sort of warning. He made it clear there was no chance of marital bliss. Now she'd be quiet as a mouse, hiding away in her dusty attic. So Julius figured it was time to bring David into the loop. With a smirk, the Lord asked if she'd cried when she found out about the attic. But the advisors reported she was smiling. Theo's eyes went wide. He froze mid-sip, totally unprepared for what Julius just dropped. The main character was over the moon. She loved the massive personal space. Plus, the magical stones kept it toasty in there. She even warmed up her frozen hands for a few minutes. She hoped her people could finally stay warm too. The heroine remembered the good old days. Her dad exploded, "You can't marry some guy you've never even met in your life." But the island was turning icy cold, and their people had never known winter before. So she'd already made her decision. Ruxy used to have eternal spring, but when the island suddenly got hit with a killer frost wave, everyone lost their minds. Magic stones hadn't been needed until now. The Emperor's offer to marry the Archduke in exchange for a bunch of magic stones became the last hope for Ruxy's residence. But her dad was dead set on it. Yuna was his only heir. Yuna believed protecting her people was the heir's top priority. Every time, she reminded herself she could handle it. She kept thinking Uncle Delkin had her back, and Lord Ellis's secretary seemed pretty decent. Then it hit her. Those were the Archduke's hands. In Ruxy, hunters were the most respected caste. Plus, Yuna was stuck living in the attic for a whole year. But hey, she was actually excited. It was a chance to get to know her husband. She had a gut feeling they'd hit it off. She was so happy, she accidentally bumped the magic stone. They started falling, and she panicked, trying to catch them before they hit the floor. But she overdid it. She slammed into the door, and it swung open. Yuna hit the floor and realized this had to be a secret passage she'd totally missed. It hurt a little from the fall. A voice suddenly asked what she was doing here. The main character froze when she saw her husband standing right in front of her, already in clean clothes, and staring at her in surprise. For a second or two, Theo lost his words. Yuna tried to explain she was just trying to catch a rock, but the man had no clue what was up with this girl, since she was supposed to be holed up in the attic crying her eyes out right now. Instead, she decided to reintroduce herself. She said she really hoped they could get along. For some reason, the Archduke suddenly saw his new bride's face in a whole new light and couldn't tear his eyes away from her. He didn't get why he hadn't really looked at her properly during their first meeting, but he instantly caught that floral scent. Theo figured it might be this beautiful girl's perfume, and immediately started studying her carefully. She was petite and graceful. Her lashes looked like bird feathers. Her eyes were like 2 precious gems. And then Theo caught himself thinking something weird. He immediately told himself to get a grip. Theo couldn't afford to feel anything for her. Weakness was a luxury he couldn't allow. He couldn't let himself fall for this girl, so he had to get even colder, even harder. He was ready to blast her and send her back to the attic. He was about to do it, but when he noticed Yuna shaking from the cold, he instantly forgot every word he'd planned. Instead, Theo asked why she was dressed so lightly. Right then, he realized his mistake. Daphne's goddess envoy was the only soul on the planet worthy of her holy power. But in reality, she was just a myth. Well, that's what everyone thought, until someone found a way to steal her power. 2 months ago, the Archduke of Phoenix asked his trusted advisor, could this letter have landed in his hands by pure luck? It mentioned a saint marked with red, scheduled for sacrifice in a year. To claim the saint's power, you need to have the mark. Theo was the only one in the imperial family who hadn't received the mark yet. For the imperial family, marriage was a sacred bond of souls, and the mark you received only once, exactly 1 year after your wedding. The mark stayed with you forever, so you had to choose your partner seriously. But every one of the Lord's past spouses either ran away or died. They got rid of the third bride candidate for the Archduke. And finally, the final prep for getting the mark was done. To be clear, the Emperor did them all in. The Archduke was Emperor Biao's nephew through his mother. They called him the War Demon, a beast who lost his cool on the battlefield and sent everyone around him straight into terror. At 15, Theo buried his mom and hit the battlefield for the first time. From then on, fear became a luxury he couldn't afford. If he showed even a second of weakness, he'd fall, and the entire North, along with its people, would fall with him. In the same grave as his enemies, Theo buried his emotions, but that backfired, and his own people started giving him the cold shoulder. Every one of this man's wives either risked death to escape living with a monster or ended up dead. Still, Theo didn't feel a thing. He just let time pass, and days stack into years. The advisor said they really needed a plan because the emperor couldn't just run wild. So Theo just decided to marry her. Julius asked, annoyed, how he could marry a woman who'd be sacrificed in a year. Theo coldly replied the emperor wouldn't dare touch her, but he needed to get the mark on her. The Archduke was super curious to find out what the emperor would say if the mark actually showed up. And now he was standing right in front of his new wife. Theo was ready to scare her good. But the girl randomly piped up, all innocent like, hey, your lordship, aren't you the one who's cold right now? The lord coldly said he didn't feel a thing. But for whatever reason, Yuna's face lit up. She turned her face away, flustered. The second she noticed his lordship was wearing something way too revealing. Theo didn't get it, but he quickly realized his plan worked. Theo said, cross that bridge, and you're at my private terrace. Theo added, if you want to go anywhere, you ask me first. No going anywhere without permission. Theo decided to scare her. He announced in a deadpan tone that he could actually catch a bright-eyed white squirrel. The heroine was stunned to find out the attic was only a few steps away from his lordship's chambers. A sudden gust of wind whipped through. Yuna suddenly lost her balance. The man's hand shot out without thinking. The next second, she was right next to her husband, her face flushing bright red from the closeness. She froze, staring him down. A faint blush crept across Theo's face. She felt as light as a feather, her silhouette delicate and elegant. He held her like a tiny bird. Yuna softly called out to his lordship. The Archduke quickly pulled his hand away, assuming she found his touch unpleasant. His ex-wives had recoiled at the slightest touch, but Yuna unexpectedly thanked him. To his ex-wives, his subjects, and enemy soldiers, the Archduke of the North has always been and will always be nothing more than a living nightmare. But there was no fear in Yuna's eyes. Theo suddenly wondered what point there was in trying to look scary. Besides, Theo could give this beautiful girl anything she wanted, so if he offered her something valuable, Yuna wouldn't be able to run away. He asked the heroine if she needed magical stones. Yuna realized the Archduke knew why she'd married him, but he'd probably hate it if the heroine reminded him that this marriage was purely for calculation, so Yuna replied that he didn't need to hand them over right now. Theo was surprised but asked, so what is it you actually want? He immediately noticed her expression shift and saw her start thinking something over after his words. No one could tell what words were about to come out of her mouth. Maybe she was about to ask him to let her go home, but whatever she said next, she'd definitely be met with disappointment. Theo had no intention of letting her go anywhere. Yuna suggested having breakfast together, but he instinctively refused. When the weight of her words hit Theo, he asked, what did you just say? The heroine, beaming with a wide, genuine smile, offered again for your grace to have breakfast with her. She didn't ask for gems or money. It was just a simple breakfast together. But Theo couldn't figure out what a tiny squirrel like that could possibly eat for breakfast. So he considered heading to the forest to gather acorns. Unexpectedly, Yuna started apologizing for it. The Archduke had been unusually quiet, so she did this. She just wanted a casual chat over breakfast to get to know each other better. And then, out of nowhere, Theo agreed. But he voiced his opinion that lunch would be more appropriate. The advisor was annoyed to be woken up so early. He didn't understand why Your Grace suddenly needed to replace the head chef in the kitchen at dawn, so Julius guessed it had something to do with the Archduchess. Theo reminded them that Yuna now held the title of his spouse, meaning they needed to share meals occasionally. Julius figured the Lord had taken an interest in the girl. Maybe now the master would finally settle into a normal life. The advisor decided to help and suggested Your Grace send Count Delkin to the Northern Wall to handle the refugee crisis. This is going to take 3 whole months, means Yuna won't be able to contact him at all during that time. The main character was shocked when her uncle told her Delkin had to head to the Northern Wall by her husband's orders. Before leaving, Delkin wanted to talk about something. He asked his niece if they'd already consummated the marriage. The uncle clarified what he meant. Had she spent the night with the Archduke? And the main character turned red immediately. Delkin got angry when he found out that hadn't happened yet. With that cute face, she could have dragged the Lord to bed ages ago. He should have been guiding his niece, but instead, he's stuck heading to the Northern Wall because of some refugees. So he told Yuna that she must not be appealing to her husband if they haven't consummated the marriage yet. She needs to seduce him right now. Delkin suggested his niece wear something provocative, so any man would want to rip it off her the second he lays eyes on her. Out of nowhere, a strange sound echoed. Yuna wondered what it was. The uncle asked her to remember his advice, and with a nod that she understood, the main character stepped onto the large terrace. A voice nearby told her she'd freeze if she stayed like that. The Archduke tossed his jacket over the heroine. He told the young woman that catching a cold would cause extra trouble, so better to avoid it. Yuna blushed and thanked him, but the jacket was too big, so Theo chopped off the sleeves with his sword. The heroine hurriedly said she could just roll them up. Everything would be fine, and you don't ruin a good jacket. Theo barely held back a smile and asked if she'd seen Delkin today. Yuna nodded and said he was leaving on business. But in reality, Theo already knew everything they'd said. You could hear it perfectly from the hallway. He'd casually eavesdropped on the whole conversation. "Now that Delkin's gone," said Theo, "she could come to me for any questions." But for some reason, the girl blushed. Delkin had explained that all she had to do was please him, and the magic stones would flow to her hands like a river. Yuna's stomach suddenly let out a loud growl. The heroine immediately started apologizing. She always had breakfast, but today she couldn't manage it. And she hadn't eaten since yesterday. Theo's face immediately turned bright red. That girl was way too cute. After a while, the Archduke of the North was already in his office, surrounded by imaginary birds, lost in thought. His subordinates didn't get why he was staring at his fingers. Theo's personal physiotherapist, David, was thrilled. His lord had called for him personally for the first time. Before this, he worked as a field medic. He'd seen time and again that healing emotional wounds is way harder than physical ones. His lordship's injuries were severe. So severe because he was indifferent to everything, like he had no emotions. So something serious was definitely going on now. David asked about symptom severity. Theo answered severe. David's eyes lit up, and he asked his lordship to describe his current condition in detail. Theo stated confidently that he'd been cursed. Confusion spread across his subordinates' faces. They couldn't fathom who'd dare curse the Archduke himself. The dark-haired man explained he was currently taming someone. Theo explained it was a long-tailed bluebird. She was really tiny and cute, but the mighty Archduke of the North was absolutely convinced that this tiny, fragile bird somehow enchanted him. David asked what made him suspect a curse. Theo slammed his hand on the table and shouted he wanted to see her all the time. He was dying to tuck her into his pocket and carry her everywhere, just to keep admiring her otherworldly beauty. A heavy silence fell in the room. David didn't expect to hear a story about the bluebird, but it's worth noting that His Highness had shown some emotions for the first time in a long while. So there was definite progress. David declared firmly that he was actually cursed. Under normal circumstances, he'd prescribe a special magical antidote to cancel all magical effects. But first, they needed to show the bluebird to someone else. If the bird was cursed, the charm magic would affect others too. If the Archduke realized the emotion wasn't magic-induced, it'd be easier for him to admit a change in his own personality. Theo told David that was his first truly useful suggestion. The physiotherapist was pleased to get some praise. He left the room, and the advisor immediately asked his master if he was really sure Yuna's using magic. If that's the case, Julius would be dealing with the symptoms too. But they'll find out the truth when they actually use David's advice. Hunting day was coming up, and all those damn rich guys would be clumped together. Perfect chance to show off the Northern Archduchess. Julius had full responsibility for organizing everything. Theo also wanted to make sure Yuna stayed warm. The advisor suddenly felt on edge and quickly assured his master he'd handle it. A few days later, Julius took Yuna outside. He noticed her red hands right away and offered her gloves. They were almost at the hunting lodge, where the aristocrats gather every month to hunt with the Archduke. Today was the first hunt of the season. Yuna was still clueless about all the local etiquette rules. The advisor mentioned the river's not fully frozen yet. Once it is, they'll be able to ice skate on it. But Yuna had no idea what that was, so Julius promised to get her a pair. They approached the cottage, and the advisor opened the door for the girl. Inside, Yuna spotted a few guys right away. One of them rushed to the main character, raving about how gorgeous she was, and how the servants weren't exaggerating. The Archduke was probably thrilled. Julius warned the nobles to mind their manners, but they didn't realize they messed up, since the girl actually was hot, so their comments weren't exactly inappropriate. They knew she'd been sold in exchange for magic stones, so they started offering her their magic gems. The main character clenched her fist. Those comments stung like hell right now. Julius snapped, "What the hell are you saying?" The Archduke glared. "What's going on here?" The nobles panicked, spotting the Northern Archduke's furious face on the second floor, and stammering, "How long's he been standing there?" Theo barked at Julius to take the girl upstairs. A flustered noble suggested his lordship go hunting, but the Archduke coldly shut it down. Then he yanked the jerk by the collar, lifting him with one hand. Theo told him he wouldn't be getting out of this unscathed. The Archduke grabbed the aristocrat's hand and asked if he'd really stockpiled that many magical stones. More than the Northern Archduke himself? Then he tossed the poor sap to the floor. Theo coldly ordered him to listen up, right now. They'd leave in silence, or if they handed over the stones they'd been hiding from the Empire, they could keep their limbs. The Archduke demanded to know that if anyone dared sully the Archduchess's honor, they'd die on the spot. The aristocrats immediately scrambled out in a panic. The heroine sat on the couch, waiting for her husband. No one had ever humiliated her this badly. Suddenly, the girl heard noise from below, and worried her husband got into trouble for her. But the man burst in through the door. Yuna's eyes widened at seeing him. He saw firsthand how the other aristocrats really treated her. So now Theo definitely didn't think she was good enough to be his wife. The man dropped to one knee and asked for her hand. Yuna blinked in confusion. The Archduke quickly explained he thought he saw a wound on her hand. Yuna glanced down, puzzled. Sure enough, her palm was streaked with red claw marks. Theo slathered crushed healing stone ointment on it, and the cuts vanished in seconds. He leaned in, voice tight with worry. "Does it hurt bad?" His wife didn't answer. Instead, she spilled out apologies for how he'd been insulted because of her. High-ranking nobles were here on this hunt. Keeping them happy mattered. Our heroine was freaking out, but Theo cut her off, tone sharp. "Remember, on these lands, only I rank above you. These are my lands. You do as you please here. Theo rules these lands. You answer only to him." Our heroine replayed his words in her head. He was right. Her title should have protected her, but unease still gnawed at her. Her husband, her lord. She yanked her hand back, suddenly flustered. Watching her reaction, Theo guessed her fear. She felt trapped here forever. Yuna asked if he was heading out for a hunt now. She took off her jacket and said Julius had gotten her a hunting outfit. Theo froze, unable to say a word. That fancy outfit was made just for today, so it'd be a shame not to put it to good use. He'd only seen her in those baggy dresses before. At that moment, she seemed like a breath of air to Theo. The Archduke slapped his face, realizing what he'd just been thinking, then told himself to get a grip. Yuna asked if she looked that weird. Theo shook his head and asked if she'd ever hunted before. She nodded excitedly and said she even knew how to use a slingshot, but never actually caught anything with it. She looked like a cute little animal herself. Theo held out his hand and said, "How about a walk through the woods?" The heroine took his hand and, with a warm smile, told the Archduke, "That's a great idea." So that's exactly what they did. There were plenty of flowers, but they smelled like nothing. That's because they were grown using magic stones, so the flowers were artificial and had no scent. Yuna suggested heading in a different direction. The smell of her hair seemed nice to our hero. While the young girl was marveling at the other flowers, Theo caught himself thinking it was actually a good thing the flowers didn't smell. Enchanted or not, it didn't matter. The Archduchess was just beautiful, that's all. Suddenly, the girl told Her Highness they could try ice skating here, even though she had no idea what it was. Theo explained they're boots with blades attached, but he was worried about the harsh climate Yuna wasn't used to. The heroine asked, with an enthusiastic smile, if he'd teach her to skate and sled when the time came. If she wanted, he could definitely do it. Unexpectedly, Theo noticed her red hands. He cursed himself mentally for not bringing her at least a coat or something warm. Yuna pulled out gloves from her pocket and explained Julius gave them to her. They were a bit big, but her hands stayed really warm. The main heroine started telling how kind Julius is to her and how super attentive he is. Theo immediately frowned. Could this be the same Julius who booted more than one lord out of the council? This guy was ready to use the trickiest and dirtiest tactics to win the war. No holds barred. Julius kept bugging Theo with his lectures, and for some reason, Yuna still thought he was kind and attentive. Julius instantly felt a chill down his spine, his whole body trembling, and an unsettling feeling washed over him. But he figured it was just a draft. Theo realized it was all because of the gift. The hero also decided to give her something so she'd see him as kind and attentive too. But nothing fit. The man kept scratching his head, trying to figure out what to give. He was sure there had to be something just right. Theo spotted a red box nearby, and opening it, found earrings with a big ruby inside. At that moment, Julius walked into the office. He said he'd taken care of the lords who stood out during the hunt. Noticing the lord's intense gaze, the advisor asked if there was a problem. But the Archduke of the North replied he had no doubts at all, that someone so kind and attentive had it all under control. Julius realized it was all about the gloves. He suggested the lord give the girl something, and instantly noticed his mother's earrings. The advisor asked him to reconsider this decision, but Theo replied the girl wasn't going anywhere, and these earrings were far more valuable and meaningful than those fabric gloves. Julius realized he couldn't convince this stubborn mule. The Archduke stood from the table, deciding to present the gift right then. He walked over to the shelf and ordered his ever-attentive advisor to move it out here instead of standing there like a statue. Julius smiled. The life seemed to have returned to his lord. As Theo carried the gift, his face lit up with a smile. Approaching Juna's door, he knocked immediately. The young girl asked for a moment, and Theo impatiently waited for her to finally come out. But when she appeared, he froze. Juna was wearing a very revealing outfit. Just seeing her, the Archduke's face flushed instantly. He had no clue what kind of magic this was. The girl quickly raised her hands to cover herself, thinking he was just a servant. Theo blurted out that from now on, he only wanted to see her in that pajama, but he just thought it, didn't say a word. Theo said he'd come to drop something off, but if she was uncomfortable now, he'd come back later. But Yuna grabbed his wrist, begging him to stay. She shot back that she wasn't the least bit uncomfortable. He realized in that instant, it had to be some cursed spell messing with his body's reactions. Everything in this room was Yuna's, and Theo declared she could take whatever she wanted. In that robe, she looked like a cloud of cotton candy. Theo handed her a small box. Shock flickered across the heroine's face the second she opened it and saw what was inside. She stammered, asking the Northern Archduke if he was seriously giving this to her, and he shyly nodded. But Yuna had no idea what to wish for. She was genuinely thrilled with the present. As soon as Yuna thanked the man, the protagonist's face lit up with a warm smile at the sight of her happy expression. He was glad she liked it. The heroine caught herself thinking, if she and the Archduke kept getting closer like this, they could one day become a real couple and live happily. Yuna wanted this to happen sooner rather than later. A week later, they had lunch together. The heroine's personal maid, Ray, let out a heavy sigh. At 12, she went to war in place of her ailing older brother to defend her country and family honor. The other knights constantly mocked her, but the Archduke personally took her under his wing to train her in swordplay. As a result, Ray helped him win the war, and for that, she was even inducted into the Imperial Order of Knights. But she painfully realized her master couldn't find joy. Ray decided to retire from her career and follow him to the castle. She planned to devote her life to serving his family, but since his lordship had already lost 3 wives, she started getting nervous. Yet the new mistress had a heart of gold. With a woman like her by your side, you could find happiness. Ray thought the same, but she was beyond furious because the North Archduke was acting all irritated today. Yuna was totally in love with the gorgeous garden. She asked the man, "What's your favorite flowers?" But he deadpanned, "I don't like flowers at all." And that answer made Ray even angrier. Yuna suggested having tea, but Theo said he'd have it brought to his office. The girl's face instantly fell with sadness. The advisor eyed the Archduchess carefully, noticed her bare ears, and figured the lord was troubled by it. He whispered to Ray, "I've got an idea." The girl suggested a shock tactic, but the advisor said they had to get the lord out of the way first. Ray quickly cooked up a fake reason to get the lord to step aside. Theo stood and told Yuna, "I'll be right back." Julius approached her and asked, "May I ask a bold question?" The heroine readily agreed, so the advisor asked, "Did his lordship give you an expensive gift yesterday?" She nodded, and the man revealed, "The late Archduchess used to wear those earrings. The jewelry's all that's left to remember her by. It meant the world to the Archduke." The heroine realized her worst mistake and asked the advisor what to do in this mess. She had her reasons. Rai stuck close to her master. Theo called the maid out, asked if she was planning to stab him in the back, since her face gave her away. She snapped, "Why's he been so cold to the mistress? Had she done something to mess up?" But the dark-haired guy shot back, "No, it's not her. It's probably me she's got a problem with. Let's face it, who likes a stiff?" Theo asked if the mistress ever mentioned those earrings. Rai checked. "You mean the ruby earrings his mom left him? Now she got why the lord's been so sour." But pouting over this was pointless. Rai figured the mistress was saving that precious jewelry for something big, so the master should apologize. Yuna suddenly caught up to them. Trying to catch her breath, she let them know she had something to say. Yuna handed over the box and said they'd explained everything. Those earrings are actually a memory of his late mother. Now she couldn't accept them. Theo wasn't surprised the gift had thrown her off. She'd already accepted them, so Theo apologized for the trouble he'd caused. But he still asked Yuna to keep them. But Yuna protested, "I can't wear them." The dark-haired man tensed up when the young woman suddenly stepped up to him and met his gaze firmly. She explained her ears weren't pierced. Turns out Yuna had a mole on her earlobe. To wear these, she needed to get her ears pierced. But she couldn't do it alone. But she couldn't wait to wear those rubies. So she pleaded with her husband, "Will you help me?" The Archduke of the North asked again if she was sure, and she nodded. She'd wanted to wear earrings her whole life. Dad left her a mark here, kinda like a piercing, but it was actually a red mark on the holy body. The heroine lit up, telling him she asked for him specifically, because she really trusts him. He brushed her chin and said, "Here we go?" Theo leaned in so close it sent a blush to Yuna's face. It'll hurt a bit, but the hero promised to make it quick. Yuna just needs to hold on. He held the needle up to her ear. The heroine clenched her eyes shut as pain hit. Blood welled up. Theo froze, worry etched in his voice. You okay? He snapped up, ready to fetch a doctor. But Yuna grinned. Still got the other ear to do. I can handle it myself. Theo shook his head. Nah, I'm doing it. A while later, it was all set. She slid the earrings in, turning to Your Holiness, with a spark in her eye. He stared, breathless. They're beautiful. Then, his eyes went wide. He immediately remembered his mother. The young man also remembered that intense emotion he felt back then. But it was a long time ago. Ignoring the heavy snow, he tried to call out to his mom. But his mom lay unconscious in the middle of endless whiteness. Earlier, Karen Rouse promised her son she'd return soon, so the defense of their lands was temporarily handed over to him. She was more of a knight than a ruler, but during a mission, she died serving the Empire. This great woman dedicated her entire life to taming the North, and eventually gave her life for the duchy. Theo had to make sure her death wasn't in vain. To protect her legacy, he had to become stronger. Time passed, and at some point, the only reminder that Karen Rouse had once lived here was the ruby earrings. Theo never gave it much thought, but now grief overtook him, only to melt away instantly at the sight of the new owner. The man wanted to tell Yuna how happy he was that she was his wife, but he stayed silent and just thanked her. In truth, only family used that form of her name. It felt good to her that the Archduke was playing with her too. The guy said, Hey, I don't have any nicknames. Everyone just calls me Theo, so you can too. The main character totally went for it. Since Theo gave her the family heirloom, it probably meant he already saw her as his wife. Before you blink, you'll have all the sweet talk coming your way. Then there'll be mom and dad. The main guy knew they were light years away from that, but the thought still made him grin. The next day, Yuna and Ray headed out to the garden. The garden never froze solid thanks to those magic stones, so the flower beds needed constant weeding, or else everything'd take over. Yuna mentioned the flowers on Rue have this crazy sweet scent. Maybe one day they'll get to visit that place together. But the heroine remembered her uncle's advice. Don't bring up Rue too often, or people might think you're weird. Right now, all she could do was write letters. Yuna started wondering if her last letter had gotten there yet. Inside was the usual greeting, a few lines about how brave His Highness was, and that he's the hottest guy in the north. But maybe it was a bit much. Ray noticed something was off, but Yuna quickly explained she was just zoned out. The main character sometimes wished she could turn back time, but the maid suddenly caught his lordship in the bushes. He was clearly trying to hide. Ray immediately started waving to signal the Archduke to hide. The main character was thinking of sending her father another letter, but this time she'd pick her words carefully. Theo knew she missed home, but was Yuna regretting her choice and wanting to go back now? He wasn't about to let that happen, so Yuna's personal maid was caught off guard when the man suddenly stood up from the bushes. The heroine turned at the sound, but Ray quickly told her to ignore it. She suggested showing the lady a pretty flower. Yuna had just started calling him by name, and now she was suddenly about to annul the marriage. Theo came to that conclusion, but he wasn't about to let that happen. Yuna was his wife now. It had been 2 months since Yuna arrived. She ate well and didn't snub the local cuisine, always asking to pass along her compliments to the head chef. She took daily walks in the garden. Theo had already decided she'd long forgotten about going home, so he didn't expect her to be so eager to leave. It takes a month to reach Ruxy. Suddenly, he realized he could recreate the Ruxy settlement right here in the duchy. Yuna's clan could even relocate there. He remembered Yuna had married him for the magic stones, so Theo would give her even more stones. She'd definitely stay and never leave him. If the Emperor or Delkin got in the way, he'd just destroy them. Out of nowhere, a woman's voice called out to Theo. The dark-haired man quickly hid the magic stone behind his back and smiled at Yuna. Over a cup of tea, he asked if the climb had been too hard on her, but Yuna replied, "There's nothing to it." She just didn't want to distract him from important business, so she was willing to make any sacrifice for it. Theo's face instantly turned red. The girl held out her hands and invited the man to take a look. The man instantly noticed the Archduchess's hands. Elegant, pale, and impossibly soft. Yuna said she found it in the garden and offered to let him smell it. Theo agreed. The heroine felt the man's lips hovering alarmingly close to her hands. His breath teased her fingertips. Theo said you could make a healing decoction from this plant for the sick. These petals grew in the valley near Juna's home on Ruhi, so she was over the moon finding them in the Archduke's garden. Dad always picked and brewed them when she had a cold. Juna's eyes lit up just thinking about home, so the man planned to give her a stack of magic stones tomorrow, and Juna suddenly asked if he'd mind her taking a trip there. Theo asked if she was serious, and she said she just needed some drying gear. The heroine suggested tagging along. Though Theo had veered off course, he liked the idea. He could slip out of the duchy for weeks without a care. Julius would crush the deputy role. Theo agreed and said he'd have the advisor pack up. They'll be on the road at least a month, so we need to get ready. But the main heroine was just talking about the city market, which wasn't that far. No way they needed all that gear. They say there's a ton of tasty stuff there. The guy froze the second he caught what she said. Next day, Ray told the lady the market'd be packed, so she couldn't wander off from his lordship. Had to stay sharp. Yuna promised to stock up on tasty stuff. Once everything was set, Ray passed Lady Julius over. The advisor had her lordship climb into the carriage, then immediately said the master'd be there soon. The girl smiled and thanked Julius. The guy shut the door, scanned the area, thinking the lord better step on it. The heroine figured Theo had a mountain of work today. That's why he was running late. Still, it was sweet they were riding together. Maybe they'd even get to hold hands. The carriage door swung open suddenly, and the Archduke quickly apologized to the young woman for making her wait. He thought Yuna looked more like a bunny today. The man explained he'd almost wrapped up all his business. To be honest, there wasn't that much work today, but Theo had to keep up the important guy vibe in front of his wife. Julius announced they were on their way. Yuna noticed something off about Theo today. His hair was neatly combed, he had a fresh haircut, and heck, he even threw on a tie. Something he absolutely hates. She told them she needed gear for drying leaves, and she wanted to grab some candy. Suddenly, the carriage hit a pebble. The carriage screeched to a halt, and Julius rushed to check if the couple was all right. He apologized if it startled them. Right then, Yuna was in his arms. The hero's face instantly blushed at being this close to her, and his heart raced. He caught a sweet floral fragrance. She needed to get the hell out, but the dark-haired man's lips started creeping toward her, and she wasn't about to stop him. Eyes already fluttering shut. Julius cut in, shouting if they were all right. Theo mentally wrote it off, pretending he hadn't heard a damn thing. He prayed Yuna's ears were still plugged, but she blinked and piped up, offering to reply to the advisor. The Archduke gave the all-clear. We can keep moving? Now, the heroes sat side by side, fingers hovering like they needed a damn go-ahead from the Pope. The main heroine cracked first, light as a feather. Her fingertip brushed his arm, and Theo damn near lost his spine. Theo's face flushed instantly, crimson under his collar. The Archduke locked in, his moment, now or never. He sucked in a breath and went for it, grabbing Yuna's hand like a man possessed. But Julius barked, "Your Grace, we're here!" And instantly they sprang apart, now sitting across from each other like strangers. Yuna frowned. Why's the market dead? Not a soul in sight. Theo scratched his chin. No clue, honestly. The heroine jutted her chin at the tea house. Let's go there, she said. And the Archduke, of course, followed. Julius figured it wouldn't take long. They had 2 hours to get it done. Since the guy shut down the entire market for the townsfolk, trade in the city just flatlined. People are stuck waiting now. Lord Theo promised they'd move fast. Still, seeing them happy was a nice touch. The merchant wished Lord and Lady a good day right after our heroes left his store. They had everything they needed now. Yuna suggested stopping by one more place. The merchants looked terrified, but the hero wasn't expecting anything but fear from them anymore. Smart move locking the market down while they were there. Theo didn't want Yuna catching on that everyone was scared to death of him. The heroine pointed at a candy shop and told the guy she wanted a taste. Strawberries, tangerines, even peaches on the menu. The girl selling the stuff was floored by his height. Her mom warned she'd get taken away by the Archduke if she misbehaved. Now the kid's scared stiff. Yuna asked the young shopkeeper for a recommendation on what to buy. The kid looked in awe at the beauty. The girl said strawberries are delicious, but she's more of a mandarin fan herself, while her little brother goes nuts for apples. Then Yuna turned to Theo and asked which to pick. The man said flat out, "We're taking all of it." The main heroine laughed and shot back at the Archduke. If we scarf down all this candy, dinner's definitely going out the window. So they settled on trying the strawberries and mandarins. People behind the heroes started whispering the second they spotted the Archduke. He tears people apart alive. But next to the beautiful Archduchess, he looked more like a lovesick puppy. The kid handed the treats over to the lady. Yuna gave the girl a quick thanks for helping her pick. The heroine caught that the kid looked a little pale, but the girl rushed out. "I just need to sit for a sec." All of this was the Archduke's doing. Yuna told him, "We'll keep the stand running while you take a breather." The kid gave a thumbs up and said, "Be right back." The heroine's smile never faded. But as soon as the girl ran off, the young woman admitted to the guy that she wasn't feeling great right now. The place was totally dead today. Nobody in the stores, nothing. Now Theo felt guilty. He didn't want Yuna to get upset, so he motioned to his advisor to open the gates right away. Just a minute passed, and the market was already packed. Yuna prayed someone would grab some fruit. A kid spotted the candy stall and begged his dad to buy some fruit, but the man froze when he saw the Archduke. As soon as the kid reached the stall, Yuna handed him a sample. The boy's dad nervously asked for a peach, and the heroine grabbed one fast, thanking them for the purchase. Theo wished them a good meal. At this rate, the day zoomed by in no time. Everything was smooth sailing, except the heroine kept wondering why the townsfolk feared the Archduke. The guy was way too kind for that. Yuna decided to loosen up a bit, so she handed Theo a strawberry and told him to try it. Her hand glided toward his, and she sighed. "This strawberry's seriously delicious." Theo froze instantly. The heroine crept closer. He ended up tasting the sugared strawberries. Okay, he didn't love them, but Yuna made him, so whatever. She suggested hitting the market again soon. Theo wasn't about to complain. Night fell, and the Archduke stood at his office window, replaying the day's events. Yuna was the first to take his hand. He couldn't believe she liked him back. Theo flipped out over their first touch and grabbed that fancy wine he'd been saving for a big occasion. Julius walked in and dropped the news. They'd bought out everything the vendors couldn't sell by sunset. People were thanking the Archduke's move. Rumor had it the Archduke himself had their backs. Then, Julius laid out the report on Delcane. He'd been cozying up to the high priest of Daphne's temple. Theo dove into the report. It seemed suspicious, and Julius confirmed the hunch. That meeting took place right in the eye of the storm. The main temple of the goddess Daphne sat dead center in the storm's eye, atop a mountain where whirlwinds have raged since time immemorial. Only chosen priests can enter. Before leaving the temple, he'll lose all memories of the time spent there. Delcane got in touch with a priest to ask about the saint. The high priest said the Archduchess is the saint. The saint's filled with the goddess's light, pure as snow, glowing like the sun. And you'll spot her by the red mark on her ear. When her true self reveals itself, everyone around will see her purpose clearly. Her Highness got the mark after the coming-of-age ceremony, and the seasons on Rue Island started changing after that. They found a stone with Rue script near the storm's eye. But even Delcane couldn't piece together all the details. His Highness didn't notice any stone when he rushed to save his mother. Julius said he'd start by contacting the Rue locals. Theo didn't get why all the clues led back to the storm's eye. The Archduke's advisor, climbing the spiral staircase, said in a worn-out voice to wait a bit. Mylene! His little sister. She stopped and asked if he was already worn out. Julius reminded her about his desk job and mountains of paperwork. Mylene called him a wimp and asked about the Archduchess. What's she like? Julius said she's a good person. The Archduke really looks out for her. Malin heard they even went to town recently and had a romantic date. But Julius just told her to stop yapping nonsense. Then he knocked on her Highness's door. The Archduke's advisor told his lady he'd brought a new maid, and she immediately let them in. Ray was carefully combing her hair. The main heroine welcomed the new girl. Malin quickly introduced herself to her Highness and promised to take her duties seriously. Yuna thanked her in advance for the work. Truth be told, Mylene was a little mad at her older brother for not even hinting the Archduchess was a total looker. It was Mylene's first day on the job. Ray said she'd head back to her training duties. Malin offered to take over Ray's hair care routine. She told the lady she was absolutely stunning today, especially her hair. It was like magic, like the first snowfall. Though Jun had probably heard that line a million times. Then, Mylene suggested the lady take a walk with the Archduke in the snow. There's a saying, if you catch the first snow with someone you love, your romance lasts forever. That was beautiful and totally romantic. A smile tugged at the heroine's lips. She really wanted to be with the Archduke like a real married couple. And the young girl believed it was totally possible. During the walk, Yuna asked how the people of Phoenix spent their free time. Maybe they had festivals or markets? The Archduke often left the fortress for work in other duchies, and Yuna really wanted to see some of those places with him. Hearing this, Mylene felt like sharing her own wisdom. She promised to make a list of Phoenix's festivals and must-see spots. Yuna suggested heading back and stopping by the White Tower on the way. The Archduke walked up to them and asked if they were really leaving already. The heroine lit up when she saw Theo. She asked if he'd decided to take a walk too. He gave a slight smile and said he just needed some air. He also thought it'd be nice to walk together. Theo noticed the unfamiliar girl, so Mylene quickly introduced herself. The heroine apologized to his lordship and explained they'd already decided to head to the White Tower. But the tower was actually black. Theo explained that when it snows, the tower's roof turns white as snow, and the townsfolk take it as a sign that winter's here. Yuna asked when the first snow would fall. She needed to invite Theo for a walk. But then Theo surprised her by saying he had no idea, and honestly hoped there'd be no snow at all. He hated snow, and even the sight of white made him queasy. Yuna blinked in confusion. Is the first snow not a good thing? But the Archduke just replied sternly, "There's no such thing as good snow in nature," leaving the girls stunned. Suddenly, Yuna spun around and announced, "Well, if you hate white so much, I'm leaving." Malin quickly apologized to the master. The main character was confused, totally clueless why Yuna was reacting so sharply. Later on, Julius asked if he could give a report. Theo gave him a stern look, then gave the go-ahead. The advisor figured his Highness already knew, but the Archduchess hadn't left the tower all day. She had meals sent to her chambers. The Lord glared, asking why she wasn't out strolling anymore. In this mess, one wrong move from the advisor, and he'd be beheaded for sure. Julius said, "Fair enough, you can see her point." She didn't want to bump into Theo, so she stayed cooped up. The guy was lost, so Julius asked, "What color are her Highness's hair?" Theo said, "White." The advisor added, "Snow's white too." Yesterday, the master said he hated even the sight of snow, and she thought it was a dig at her hair too. The Lord was fuming. Julius added, "She went with that logic. Everyone said her hair was as white as fresh snow. Lord Theo stormed up to his advisor and demanded to know what in the world this had to do with anything. The hero thought Yuna's hair wasn't just white. It had a warm glow to it. Julius agreed. But what really mattered was how Yuna saw it herself. He strolled over to the door and announced he was heading out. The hero couldn't just let things be, so he marched over to his chair and grabbed his coat. He needed to talk to Yuna, fast. He knocked on the door and asked if she was in there. No answer. So the Archduke told the young woman he needed to say something to her, right now. That's why he wanted to meet up and have a chat. Yuna finally opened the door and let him in. The man froze when he saw Yuna wrapped in this fluffy blanket that covered almost her whole body. Just her face was visible. He asked her to sit, and she nodded. Theo offered to take the blanket off, but Yuna shook her head. Since the Archduke hated her hair, because it reminded him of snow, doing that was a bad idea. The man stepped forward and yanked the blanket off her head. He said he never thought her hair looked like snow. Theo admitted he actually thinks they're really beautiful, and her eyes lit up in surprise. The Archduke apologized to Yuna for hurting her, but she apologized herself for not getting things right. The main character admitted he's always felt awkward around her, and Yuna asked why. Theo felt ashamed for trying to force her to stay in the north. Yuna asked why he doesn't like snow. The heroine froze up when she learned the snow killed the Archduke's beloved mother. At first, the Empire had very few magic stones. They were always in short supply, and the Phoenix people were freezing all the time. Then the Bai Kingdom promised they'd lift the restrictions if they explored the Eye of the Storm. The Eye of the Storm was where the snowstorms raged non-stop. Chances of making it out alive were next to nothing. But Theo's mom, Archduchess Karen Rose, went straight for the Eye of the Storm to save her people. He said he barely found her body, because by the time he got there, the snow had almost buried him. That's why Theo hated snow. Without it, the guy could have made it in time to save his mom. Yuna quietly said she was really sorry. Theo smiled and said, "Everything's okay?" The main character froze and stared at him in surprise when he reached up and gently brushed his fingers over the earrings in her ears. Wearing those earrings was her comfort. Then Theo stood up and told the girl to get some rest. Out of nowhere, Yuna asked if he'd had another drink today, and the Archduke froze on the spot. The secret was, Yuna had been spying on him through the door crack all along. The heroine offered to have a drink with him. The Archduke was stunned by her offer. Theo looked so sad telling his story. No wonder the heroine wanted to cheer him up. Alcohol always lifted his mood and gave him the guts to do things he'd never dare otherwise. Images started flooding Theo's mind. He quickly shook them off and asked her, "You ever had a drink before?" Yuna nodded and said she had a glass of wine while sailing on the ship. The hero definitely needed a bit more courage tonight, which is why he agreed to the girl's offer. Theo hoped he didn't take too long picking out a drink. He caught his reflection in the window and realized he was starting to lose his edge. So tomorrow, definitely time to hit the gym. He stepped into the room and immediately apologized for the long wait. But Yuna was already asleep. She'd spent the whole day cleaning the tower today. He didn't mind her napping, so he decided to watch her sleep and laid down next to her. Yuna was beautiful even in her sleep. Suddenly, Theo noticed a strand of hair had snuck into her mouth. It was just a tiny strand, so he reached out to brush it away. No big deal. Yuna suddenly rolled toward him. Now her lips were super close. His face instantly turned bright red. Her breath was already making him lose his cool. He was about to pull away when Yuna suddenly pressed against his leg. Nobody had ever pushed his buttons like that since the day he was born. After a few minutes passed, the heroine slowly opened her eyes, still fuzzy on what was going on. She realized she'd dozed off a bit. Then Yuna realized what had happened, and her eyes went wide. The heroine started apologizing to Theo, explaining she hadn't even noticed she'd fallen asleep. Theo just said everything was totally fine. He offered to try the wine. But then Maylene walked in, greeted Her Highness, and didn't notice the Archduke right away. Only then did she catch the Lord's stern expression. Maylene blushed instantly and apologized. The heroine was thrown for a loop. She thought only a little time had passed, but it was already morning. Theo stood up and suggested postponing the wine for another time. Yuna took his hand and suggested having dinner tonight instead. Then they could open the wine, since the heroine felt it was her duty to at least sip something Theo picked. Maylene apologized to the Archduchess once more, but Yuna just said she didn't need to worry. The heroine got an idea and asked her personal maid to tell her what his lordship's mom was like. The girl said Karen Rose was a great woman. His lordship did everything he could to bring her home. When he rode off alone straight into the eye of the storm, chaos broke loose and everyone thought he wasn't coming back. Fortunately, the knights found him in time and brought him back to the castle. But after that, the Lord was itching to go to war. The heroine figured if Theo were in her shoes, she'd hate the snow just as much after going through something like that. Now Yuna decided to return the man's kindness. She showed up in a beautiful outfit. The heroine asked the Archduke if she could sit beside him, and the dark-haired man readily agreed. Over dinner, Yuna told him how her day went. She cleaned the entire lower level of the tower. Even though it wasn't part of the Archduchess's job, Yuna thought it mattered and told the man that their room would be there. With no windows, it felt really cozy in there. An image popped into his head. His face instantly flushed red, but he quickly snapped out of it and suddenly realized Yuna was way braver than he'd originally thought. Out of nowhere, the girl blurted that there was a spot to hide from the snow, because now she hated it too. So during the first snowfall, they could sneak there. To avoid being stuck in one room, they could wander the tower. Unexpectedly, the heroine asked the man with a sad tone if snow made him feel down. She didn't want him to be alone in moments like that. Yuna also really wanted to get to know Theo better. The Archduke's face lit up with a warm smile, and he told the girl he wanted to know her just as badly. Then Yuna shared that her mom died young, and she grew up with her dad. He never liked talking about her. Every time the heroine wanted to learn something about her mom, she'd light a fire on the beach. Her dad would open up more in front of it. When winter comes, Theo suggested lighting a fire too. He poured a glass of wine, and with a warm smile, said it'd make it easier for them to be honest with each other. Yuna stared at her reflection. If one winter evening she found herself sitting by the fire with Theo, she'd just flat out ask if she could be his real wife. The Archduke raised a toast to the coming of winter. Suddenly, Julius burst into the office. Theo was about to protest, but the advisor said they had a guest. He claimed he came from Rook Island, introduced himself as Azarim, and added that Her Highness definitely knew him. Yuna cheered, "That's my friend!" She asked to meet him, and Theo said he'd go too. The heroine ran off, humming a little tune to herself. The advisor asked His Highness if he even realized the Archduchess's friend was a guy. Azarim turned at the sound of Yuna's voice. He was the heir to the Apan tribe on Ruka Island. The heroine sprinted to the man and hugged him tight. Azarim held her just as fiercely in return. The man said he'd been dying to see her. Theo froze when he saw they were holding hands. They'd hugged and held hands all the time. But as the Northern Archduke, he couldn't wrap his head around whether it was even normal. Yuna introduced Theo to her childhood friend. The man's face was all tight and tense. Azarim marched right up to the Archduke, gave him a respectful nod, and stuck out his hand like he meant business. Then Azarim introduced himself to Yuna's husband. The girl instantly turned red and apologized to the Archduke for her friend's total lack of etiquette. Yuna quickly filled Azarim in. It was the Archduke of Phoenix, and the guy did the handshake thing again, all polite-like. Theo didn't want Yuna feeling uncomfortable, so he gave the hand a shake, tight-lipped. But inside, he couldn't forgive this guy for hugging Yuna, so he crushed Azarim's hand like a vice. Yuna's buddy muttered something about whether the Archduke was a bear. Seriously huge guy, but they were speaking some other tongue, so Theo forced a smile and told Yuna to translate for him. Yuna rolled her eyes and snapped at her friend, to just speak the common tongue already. Out of nowhere, Azarim blurted out he was starving. Theo saw this as a chance to show Yuna just how generous a husband and composed lord he was, ignoring his friend's familiarity. So he told Azarim he'd feed him, of course. His wife's dear friend could feel right at home. A flicker of confusion crossed Azarim's face. As soon as the heroes sat down, the heroine asked her friend how things were at the village, and if the weather had gotten really bad. Azarim reassured her, saying there was no need to worry. Theo suddenly asked if the food was already gone. He pointed at the Archduke and explained he meant his empty plate, but the girl asked him not to point. Theo mentally cursed the brat. Since His Highness had already eaten, he could just leave, since Azarim had a lot to discuss with his childhood friend. But the Archduke irritably refused to leave. He ordered Julius to bring more food. The Archduke wasn't about to leave them alone, so he'd keep eating until the dinner tried to come out. Yuna explained that Theo just loves to eat a lot. She told him how much she'd missed everyone during this time. Her friend smiled warmly, telling her he'd missed her so much. Yuna had been stuck in his head all day. Azarim regretted letting her go back then. Archduke clenched his fork in anger, but Yuna announced she was doing just fine there. She's already got 2 friends here, Ray and Meline. Plus the Duke's secretary Julius was always there to help. Theo's been really kind to her. Words couldn't capture how grateful Yuna was. Theo said it was only natural, no need to thank him, and if she needed anything, he'd take care of it. Azarim said he was glad to hear His Highness was being kind to Yuna. Archduke realized this visit had a purpose. Her friend explained that if it weren't for the Lord of the North, the lady would have married him. Marrying heirs is just natural. Theo shot back that in their tongue, they'd call that dog nonsense. That phrase was used to describe pure nonsense. Yuna frowned, angry, and asked her childhood friend why he brought that up at the dinner table. She had no idea what was wrong with him. Azarim apologized, explaining he just wanted to see how he'd react. He explained to his girlfriend in another language that all this was necessary to test his true self. Yuna wanted to be a good wife to Theo, but the situation was awkward as hell right now. Azarim dropped his gaze and apologized. The joke had gone too far. He thanked them for taking care of Yuna, and the stressed-out Archduke shot back that it was his duty as a husband. Yuna always said she liked reliable men, It was getting late, so Theo suggested wrapping up the meal. Azarim told his girlfriend he'd missed the days when they'd chat about everything under the sun for days straight. But Theo cut in, saying the guest rooms were located somewhere else. Yuna's friend was about to say he'd just crash at her place, but the Lord shut that down fast. Yuna suggested they talk tomorrow. Theo was only getting more irritated by the whole situation. After a while, he slammed the most expensive bottle of liquor he owned onto the table. The guy already hated this prick. He couldn't stand the thought of Yuna getting hurt and heading home. Suddenly, Archduke Phoenix heard a sound like a pebble hitting the window and immediately went on high alert. It was Yuna waving at him. Turns out she'd forgotten something she needed to give him. It was U-leaf tea. Theo was surprised Yuna had come for something like this. She explained she really wanted him to be the first to try it. Yuna thanked him for being so kind to Azarim today. The Archduke smiled and promised to try the tea for sure. Late that night, Azarim was walking down the hallway. He froze the moment a voice from behind ordered him to stop. Archduke's cold stare could have scared even the bravest man. Asked Azarim where he thought he was going at this late hour. The man snapped he hadn't given permission to use his name. Azarim revealed his true face right then. The Archduke repeated his question. Azarim shot back that he couldn't sleep and needed to see Yuna, right now. Theo's voice dropped cold. When do you plan on going home? Azarim shrugged. Just meant to meet Yuna, then head straight off the continent. But I get it now. I need to stick around a bit longer. The Archduke reminded me that the heir can't be absent from their lands this long. Azarim said he became the heir on purpose because he wanted to marry Yuna. He couldn't stand that his girl had to end up with someone like the Northern Archduke, who's all about brute force. Azarim was furious that Theo was the one who offered magical stones in exchange for a wife. The Archduke smirked and reminded him they'd agreed to it themselves. But the brunette was against it from the start. Delkin always rubbed him the wrong way. But in the end, Azarim let Yuna go. He didn't have to whine about it anymore. Azarim realized the Archduke's just using their desperation as an excuse to keep Yuna here. Now the brunette got why marriage was the main condition, but the Archduke made it clear. He'd let him walk out alive only because of her. Azarim shouted, "They're meeting at the training arena tomorrow, and Yuna absolutely can't find out." Azarim was a hometown heartthrob. The main character asked Malin if his lordship looks like a real noble. Malin froze at the question. Yuna gushed that His Highness is so stunningly handsome with those sharp aristocratic features. But Malin knew the Archduke from a different angle. Out of nowhere, she asked where Ray was. And Yuna replied that she was running a bit late today. Rumor says something big is happening at the training arena today, so I guess she's there now. The knights surrounded Azarim and started interrogating him. The guy started spinning tales about how he took down a bear with just a dagger. Azarim added he'd chatted up the maids, who apparently have a thing for knights. He offered to set them up if they're interested. The Archduke coldly asked why they weren't training. Azarim informed his lordship you were late, and admitted he'd started thinking you weren't coming at all. Without a word, Theo tossed his opponent a practice sword. He told Azarim to be grateful it wasn't a real blade. The knights immediately started whispering. His Highness hadn't sparred with anyone in ages, yet this kid was full of himself. Azarim took his fighting stance and challenged his opponent. Why so nervous? But Theo calmly replied he was just figuring out how to beat him without leaving him permanently crippled. The blonde man clenched the sword's hilt. Those words had really got under his skin. He figured he'd see how the Archduke was going to play this and charged in first, confident he could take him. But Theo dodged it easily. Then Azarim struck again, but it was blocked. The Archduke's eyes went wide when the other guy, smirking smugly, said, Yuna wouldn't be happy here. That kind of heartless guy was no good for her. Theo let his guard down, and Azarim landed a hit to his side. He thought it was cruel to keep Yuna cooped up in some cold place. But the Archduke just smirked and asked, You done talking, or do you got more to say? Theo said, Let's wrap this up, teach him a lesson, and be done with it. Then he was the one who struck first. He said, 3 strikes and it's over. Moments later, Azarim crashed to the ground. He froze when his wooden sword snapped. Game over, he'd lost. The Archduke said, That's all, call it a day. Just as Azarim suspected, this guy's got unimaginable power. He wanted his lordship to reach out, but Theo just turned away coldly, showing no interest. Azarim stood up and announced he was heading to Yuna's. Noticing the Archduke's annoyed look, the brunette asked, You're not gonna stop me, are you? Julius burst in and asked Theo if he was okay. The advisor was told the master was at the training arena, and his opponent got what was coming to him. Julius panicked when he saw his master's bloodied hand, but the Archduke calmly told him to chill. Azarim wasn't half bad. Those weren't empty boasts. He's fast and knows how to throw an opponent off balance. The Archduke let him land a couple hits before finally disarming him. Yuna was too easy for Theo, so that brown-haired guy earned a consolation prize. Azarim's words flashed through the brunette's mind. All that whining was pointless. He's still not letting Yuna go. If the brown-haired guy wanted to see his lover, he could go ahead and stare his little heart out. Azarim froze, realizing the Archduke was actually a total lunatic. Theo was in his office reading a document. He immediately grimaced at the sudden, sharp pain that shot through his left hand, like a knife had pierced his flesh. Maybe he really shouldn't have held back and just beat the crap out of him. Azarim stormed into the office and shouted that because of him, he couldn't meet with Yuna. But Theo calmly reminded him of basic manners. He smirked and shook off the brunette's possible hurt feelings. But he knew that wasn't the real issue. The Archduke explained that their rooms with Yuna are connected by a bridge, so Azarim had to deal with him every time. The brunette, his face twisted in displeasure, angrily shouted that he'd suspected from the start that he'd locked Yuna in the tower. Yuna suddenly walked into the office. She was surprised to see Azarim there. The main heroine told the Archduke something terrible had happened, and the staircase to her room literally collapsed. But Theo calmed her down, saying the workers were to blame. The collapse happened while Yuna was cleaning on the first floor. The Archduke even told her not to think it was her fault, because he should have checked the tower's condition better. The danger was already gone. Yuna asked her friend what they'd talked about with the Archduke. She knew they'd hit it off instantly. One night was all it took to become friends. Azarim froze when the master confirmed it. Yuna apologized for butting in and said she was heading out. The Archduke, confused, asked where she was off to, and the main character said they were going to tend to the garden with Milene today. Even though the servants could handle it, Yuna liked doing it herself. Azarim suddenly volunteered to help. The Archduke confidently said he'd tag along then. He smirked at the brunette and said he could use a little of this kind of exercise too. Milene pointed out a spot where the mistress could plant some flowers. The main character asked the two guys if they could set up a tea table there. They instantly backed her idea. Then they killed each other with a look. Ray joined in, apologizing to Her Highness for being held up at the training grounds. Yuna gave her a compliment. She looked sharp in that outfit. Ray didn't forget the lady asked for a hand with something. Out of nowhere, she spotted the Archduke yanking up weeds. Her eyes nearly popped out of her head. What in the world was he doing? Yuna filled her in. Theo and Azarim were already on board to lend a hand. She sized up the stranger. Turns out, he wasn't bad in a fight. Ray was seething. He had the audacity to harm the lord of this place. And let's be real, she hated upstarts with a passion. Chatton was on his feet the second he caught sight of Ray. He'd watched her in the training yard earlier. Looked like she could handle herself. Ray's face went bright red. Talk about awkward, coming from a self-absorbed stranger. Melon smirked and shot Ray a look. Stop gawking like a statue. She went for an axe, but Yuna caught her wrist. Come on, we've got two strong guys here. Let them take care of it. Ray marched straight toward the guys. She jabbed a finger at the tree stumps. Dig these out now! The place had to be prepped for planting, so the guys nodded and got to work without a second thought. Theo grabbed the axe. His hand shot with agony the minute he touched it. Azarim asked if he was already having trouble. The Archduke told the dark-haired guy to give it a shot, and he said he'd chopped down at least 100 trees in Rukshi. He swung but instantly felt a sharp pain in his left side. The axe barely nipped the stump. Ray stepped up, scoffed, and said, I'll do this myself. With one sharp, confident swing, she effortlessly split the thick stump in half. Yuna was impressed by Ray's strength. She told His Highness to quit, but Theo insisted on doing it himself. He had to beat that guy no matter what. So that stump had to crack right in front of Yuna's face. He still managed to slice it a little. Theo instantly went into waiting mode, expecting praise from Yuna. Instead, she walked up and worriedly said, You look pale. Your hands are cold. Yuna told the maids to wrap up later. She told Theo to lie down and rest. A faint blush rose on the Archduke's face. He liked the attention, but Yuna shouldn't have been worried. Out of the blue, Azarim asked the girl for a walk together. Theo was about to join in, but the heroine told him to take a break. Yuna promised they'd be back quick, and Azarim added that His Highness needed proper rest. Theo grabbed the heroine's hand on the spot. He whined that he was feeling absolutely terrible. The Archduke ordered them to speed it up. He wanted Yuna to brew his special herbal tea herself. The heroine promised she'd be back in a flash. Then she headed out for a stroll with her pal. Theo immediately called Ray over. The Lord ordered him to tail them. He wanted to hear every word they said. And the girl didn't even seem surprised. Hard to believe Azarim actually came for a friendly visit. So Theo was wondering what the hell that brunette was planning. Everything was in bloom here, despite the chill. And Yuna asked her childhood friend if he thought it was cool. But it was all because of the magic stones. Yuna explained that even the river freezes solid in the winter. Azarim immediately spotted several spies watching them right now, and he had a pretty good idea who was behind it. He apologized for the delay, explaining he'd just been admiring the local scenery. Yuna admitted that these nature walks brought her peace. Azarim remembered how, since they were little kids, back when they were both carefree, Yuna had always loved strolling. Those walks together meant the world to him. But winter had forced them to leave those days behind. Azarim kept telling himself this was the only way to save the island. But it didn't stop him from getting angry. Suddenly, they reached a hunting cabin. Shaitan suggested stepping inside to talk. No prying eyes. The heroine wondered, hadn't they been alone the whole time? Azarim suggested switching to Rue. No one else was around, and Yuna happily agreed. Shaitan told the girl that Suma had won the tournament. He regretted not being there in person for the tournament. Then he started mimicking his dad. had to help out instead of going to the tournament. Yuna asked how her dad was doing these days. Azarim said that since she left, he rarely leaves the house. The main character asked her friend to tell him she's okay as soon as he gets back to Rook Island. But Azarim refused, saying she'll tell him herself. But Delkin told Yoon to wait at least an hour, so it doesn't look like a trick to get the magic stones. Shaitan said she doesn't need to stay here anymore. He found another way. Julius knocked on his master's office door and announced his arrival. The Archduke, bare-chested, immediately asked the advisor where Yuna is right now. Julius was surprised the wound healed so quickly. Theo frowned when he found out the girl had already come back a while ago. The advisor admitted he personally asked the lady to come later, thinking His Highness was already asleep. The Archduke asked if there were any news from the shadows. Julius said they talked a bit about the island news, then went into the master's hunting cabin. Theo angrily asked what they were doing there. The advisor hesitantly explained they just got cold. They talked for ages in that cabin, but since they were using Rukshu the whole time, no one could catch what they were saying. Shadows guessed Azarim was definitely trying to convince the girl of something. The main character was lying on the bed, staring at the ceiling. A voice from her childhood echoed in her head, saying he'd found another way for her to get back home. He told her to remember the snow woman from the island's old stories. Her hair was as white as fresh snow. There was a legend. If the snow woman drank from the river of memories, she could reclaim her true power and save the island from disaster. A lot of people on the island thought Yuna looked just like her, but the heroine pointed out no one actually knew where that river was. But Azarim found it. The holy water fountain in a specific temple matched the river of memories description, giving off this blue glow. Yuna asked, "How'd he even come up with that?" He picked it up from hearing the locals talk. Even if they couldn't fully trust it, he didn't see another way to save the island. And he didn't want Yuna getting disrespected. The heroine wanted to help her people, so she promised to ask Theo to let her go to that temple. Azarim's face lit up with a smile, and he thanked June for backing his idea without hesitation. But he asked her not to share Rue's legends with any strangers. It would be great if Azarim was right. Then the island would be saved from the cold, and everything would turn out good. Dad could regain his strength, and the heroine could live happily with Theo. If there's no deal, they could just be a normal couple. The girl gave in to her daydreams, but she suddenly remembered her promise to the Archduke she'd vowed to keep that morning, and immediately ran to him. It was already late, and Theo might have fallen asleep. But since Yuna had made a promise, she had to see it through. The heroine quickly decided to brew a fragrant tea and head back to her room. She flung the door open and immediately collided with someone. Turns out it was Theo. He hadn't gone to sleep yet. Yuna didn't realize he'd been waiting all this time and immediately apologized, explaining she'd just lost track of time. She really hoped he wasn't still mad.